Hello everyone, Clayton Miller here with Makeover Homes, bringing you another awesome presentation as part of the Makeover University series. Today we're going to be talking about the dual pre-approval. This is very important for all you realtors out there, why the dual pre-approval is important, why it can help your client, and ultimately why it can help you close more deals. So today we're going to talk about what stops your deals from getting to the closing table. First one on the list is the mortgage. We try to get our clients pre-approved before we go shopping, but every once in a while, something happens between the day that you make the offer and the day that you need to close. Whether there's a contingency on the line and they have to sell their house, or they unfortunately went and bought something that changed their credit score, or the kind of house that you're looking to buy doesn't quite qualify for the right type of mortgage. Number of different reasons why a mortgage may not allow a deal to go through. The next one, and probably most common, is an inspection. Most inspections come back with a little something on it that the seller is typically able to fix, or they're willing to offer a credit to the buyer so that they can make that problem go away. However, every once in a while, something pops back on the inspection that just costs too much, or the buyer just cannot deal with it, or it reverts back and doesn't allow the loan to cover it. So an inspection is a tough one to get by. And a lot of realtors really believe that once they get past that inspection response, it's pretty much home free. The next thing that you run into is that appraisal. Now, there's really nothing you can do about an appraisal. That appraiser is going to walk the home, they're going to look at comps, and they're going to crank out that number. Sometimes that number is a little low, sometimes that number is a little high, sometimes it's right on. But if it's low, then that can stop us from closing that deal because now the mortgage won't work, or the seller won't drop the price, or there's not enough cash to bring to the table to make that number work. And the last one to talk about is the house is missing something. So most realtors talk to their clients, they figure out what kind of house they're looking for. And as you know, as a realtor who's been doing this for a while, you can't find a house that has 100% of everything on their list. It just doesn't exist. So what we do is we scour the MLS, we scour Zillow, we try to find a house that is 80%, 90% of what that client wants. And hopefully that 10% that we didn't quite make it, your buyer is willing to deal with. However, in some instances, you show up to a house, it's missing something, and now that buyer is no longer interested. So fortunately, we are able to help you on two of these scenarios. The first one being inspections. If there's a bad inspection and there's a huge inspection response, there's a lot of issues going on with that home, we're here to help. And number two, if the house is missing something. So if you're missing that garage or that bathroom or whatever it might be, the Makeover Mortgage Process, powered by Makeover Homes, can take care of that problem and get you to the closing table. All right, so let's first talk about that inspection. So if you're working with an FHA buyer, a VA buyer, a USDA buyer, and even some conventional buyers, there are a couple things that can pop up on that inspection that are absolute deal breakers. The first couple, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but the ones we see the most often are a bad roof. So a roof has to have at least 2 years of life left in order to pass an FHA minimum standard. Another one we see often is an HVAC system that's either way too old or isn't working properly. We oftentimes find structural damage. This happens, unfortunately, when some DIY remodeler decides to edit their home and doesn't quite take into account the structural integrity. In this case, some piece of wood or some kind of framing is often cut out when it really shouldn't be. Mold is another big one. When mold pops up on an inspection, it's typically a red flag that something needs to be fixed because something was wet. So there are a number of other problems that can pop up that an FHA buyer or an appraiser, when they come through and know that it's an FHA buyer, will see and will find. And if that's the case, then that deal can't go through until those problems are taken care of. So this is the first problem that we're going to manage, and we'll tell you how in a moment. The second issue that we can handle here at Makeover Homes using the Makeover Mortgage Process is if the house is missing something. So like we talked about, realtors often try to find the 90% picture of what that client is really after. After you look through the big long list of all the client's wants and wishes and hopes, it's impossible to find exactly that home. So we do our best. We search and we search and we search. We line up a couple houses. Maybe this one's got enough square footage, but not enough bedrooms. This one's got the bedrooms, but doesn't have the garage. We're always missing something. And sometimes a buyer is willing to buy a house without that something. But unfortunately, oftentimes, there's a certain something that a buyer just cannot live without. So how often have you guys heard these? If only it had a garage or an attached garage. Wow, that kitchen is outdated. If this wall was gone, it would really be perfect. And then you get the others that say, they walk into a home and say, this carpet smells, and wow, that tile floor is hideous. Or the last one, and there's countless, but the last one that says, this master bedroom or master bathroom really needs updated. Pretty much no matter what, you're going to walk into a house and that client's going to find something that's missing. There's something that's not there, or there's something that's there that they don't want to be there. Moral of the story is finding that house that's absolutely perfect is darn near impossible. So that's another problem that we can fix using the Makeover Mortgage Process. So currently you've got 4 options if you run into either of these problems. The first one is you ask the seller to provide the repairs or renovations, which means that seller is going to have to come out of pocket money and time in order to take care of those situations prior to closing. If you guys have sold many homes, if there's a big issue with the home, oftentimes a seller is not willing to or may not be able to come out of pocket the funds that are needed for a new roof or a new drain put around their home because there's too much water pushing against it, or to buy a HVAC system. New HVAC systems are going up and up in price every day. So that's one of your options. The next option is to ask to have the purchase price dropped. Now, depending on the market, this is a question that we can sometimes ask. And a seller, once they find out that their roof is bad, they're willing to take 10, 15, 20 grand off the price because they know it has to be fixed. However, if you're using an FHA buyer, just taking money off of the asking price doesn't actually solve your problem. That roof has to be fixed prior to closing. So depending on the kind of mortgage you're using, you may be able to ask for a reduction in price, and you may not. The third option is to try to upgrade your buyer. So if they are using a VA or an FHA or a USDA loan, if you're able to upgrade them to a conventional loan, oftentimes the rules are a little bit more lenient, which means they can borrow money against a house that isn't quite in as good a shape as the FHA and the others require. But as you guys know, with a lot of your buyers, FHA is the only opportunity that they'll have. So if you can't use any of those options, the fourth final option is go find them another home. So you're back on the MLS, you're back shopping. That means you got to show more homes, all of the above. The good news is we've got a fifth option for you. Makeover Homes and the Makeover Mortgage Process. That's what we're going to cover next. So one thing I know you're asking, and if anybody has any past experience with this kind of model, you're asking how long does this take and what does it add to my typical timeline, my typical process when helping a buyer buy a house? Well, here are the numbers. So we start by getting dual pre-approved. That's working with the lender. It takes the exact same amount of time as any other. Then you're going to go house shopping. Who knows how long the house shopping process? Some of you know it could take a week. Some of you know it could take months, if not years. Then you're going to make an offer, and that kind of starts our clock. So that's day one. Once the offer is made, the home inspection comes in. So up to this point, outside of the dual pre-approval, everything is as usual. Have that inspector show up and return that inspection response. What we would like to know is if you already are aware that a renovation will be necessary, we'd like you to go ahead and get that HUD consultant scheduled. And we'll go over what that HUD consultant is shortly. So the HUD consultant shows up day 5 to 8. This is after the home inspection is already taken care of, after that offer was made. So now the HUD consultant has shown up, they've walked the project, talked to the client, and now it's time to get that contractor bid. So here is the biggest chunk of time and the biggest difference between what you typically do and what you're going to do using the Makeover Mortgage Process. So after that home inspection, and that HUD consultant tour the property. Whatever is needing to be done, we're going to help you grab a contractor to help give you a bid and get that project knocked out. That contractor's bid, depending on the size of the job, could take anywhere between 2 and 3 days, or up to 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks if it's a really big project. So the better that we can piggyback these folks and schedule them on top of one another, the better. Once the contractor bid is taken care of, we have the appraisal, ordered as usual. It's a little bit different than your standard, but more or less the same. So now we're looking at day 14 to 30 after making that offer. Then we're going to get our clear to close somewhere between day 25 and 45. So as you can see, we've closed renovation loans in 30 days or less. Now, if it's a really large project and there's a lot going on, the closing could be 45 to 60 days, depending on the size. However, if it's just a roof, or if it's just a roof and HVAC system, something relatively fast, hitting that traditional 30-day mark wouldn't be too bad. And then the next one, and at this point, you're done. You're out, your hands off. The next point is the actual renovation. That renovation can take place with clients in the home, or again, depending on the size and the severity, may have to take place before the clients move in. And then the last one, move in. So we've done these deals, and we've done renovation, we've done the Makeover Mortgage Process from start to finish in as little as 30 days, and some of them take longer. It could be a couple months before that renovation is completed and those clients are moving in. It just depends on the size of that project.